Meantime, I'd like to invite the first speaker for your after lunch session up to talk. I'd like to introduce Chloe. Chloe, would you like to come up? Chloe, in addition to being a speaker, has been helping us organize the conference. She's done an excellent job dealing with basically every email we received, which is extremely helpful because it meant I didn't have to do it. And we're delighted to have her speaking as well. Thank you very much, Chloe.
Hi everyone, this is my first talk, so you're kind of going to have to bear with me a bit. So it's going to be on chatbots and what is AI. So it's going to be all in relation to chatbots, because AI is too much of a massive area for me to actually go into in 20 minutes. Oh, that's the zoom button. So the definition of AI using a credible source, Wikipedia. Artificial intelligence is intelligence exhibited by machines, which means absolutely nothing, really. Which isn't anything to do with the source it came from. But there's so much buzz surrounding AI, and everyone seems to be doing it. Facebook are bringing out their own. You've got Apple with Siri, you've got Google with OK Google, and Microsoft have got Cortana. And to me, before I started working in the area, it looked like only what I can describe as magic. So I looked at these two, mainly at Siri because that's what I've got on my phone. So I've got a bit into Google, but not that much. So looking at Siri as a product, it appears to have memory, but it answers basic questions with basic answers, and it doesn't really maintain any context in a conversation. And without voice recognition, both of these products, they just have access to service, and that's really all that's to them. If you talk to Siri to tell you your name, it'll go through the data in your phone, and that's about it. And then if you ask the weather, it'll go to some sort of API and find the information and relay it back to you. So they both have, because the same is in common with OK Google, they both have a set of commands which can be used to relay information back to a user. And if it doesn't have anything to reply with, it just searches for you and gives you some sort of non-answer, which doesn't help you ever. So here's me trying to have a conversation with Siri. So I tried to ask about the next football game. I hate football, but this was the best example I could come up with. And I got a response due to the sheer amount of information that they have access to. And then when I tried to ask another question, Siri had already forgotten what we'd been talking about. And you'll notice that it won't connect the sentences properly. But if you ask the same question, all in one go, without trying to use a different set to the conversation, it will recognise it and just rip out the full stop. So it's like talking to someone who knows absolutely everything that's got amnesia. However, I say that, but Siri has got things which it does remember. So you've got things like, you tell it, call me lemons, and it will then from the call you lemons, because that's what it's remembered. And I think OK Google, it remembers where you live, which is a bit creepy, but it does. And then there's other pre-programmed conversations in there, such as texting. So if you ask Siri to send you a text, send a text for you, it'll ask what the text is, who it's going for, and then confirm sending it. But you do get, in that case, get to exchange a couple of things in between with Siri and yourself, so it does maintain some context to what you're actually speaking about. So I broke those products down into basics, and I imagine, because I don't really know, because I've not worked on them, that they're using machine learning techniques, say, for the language parsing. So I'm only going to give a brief overview of machine learning, because it's one of those subjects which you could spend hours talking about. So machine learning, it uses various algorithms to allow a computer to learn for itself. So it can do this in two ways. You've got supervised learning, and then you've got unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is where the machine is given data, which is already known to be correct, and then it uses that to create its own examples. So if it's learned various ways of people to say hello, it'll know that the response to hello is hello. If you've said hey, hi, all of those are confirmed as correct, it knows the response to those. And then with unsupervised, you give it a bunch of data, it will make its own conclusions out of that data and it will return what it thinks is right. So if you had someone type in a mass of typos and it has already worked out, say, that hello with one L should go to hello, it will work it all out even with typos, spelling mistakes and such. But that doesn't always mean it goes to the right place, so it depends on your users. If people were typing things in incorrectly, it'll draw the wrong conclusion and it won't really know what's going on other than what it's worked out. So that's where in, say, the chatbot world, it's not the best. So, for example, not Everbot, Cleverbot, that's the one, close enough. If you've ever chatted to that, you demand that it's a human. It will then battle with you to the death, absolutely convinced that you're the human and no, that you're the robot and it's the human. And that's where it's used unsupervised learning to draw its own conclusions of what people have said to it. How I've always played with that and I found it really interesting how you can talk to it and it seems almost as though it's human because it's taken your text and parsed it and worked it all out. But if you need structured answers and you need things to go to a certain place, it might not get there. So in this case, I am purely thinking about machine learning in natural language processing. It's used for data and all sorts, but just for this one, NLP. But it doesn't solve other problems, such as access to services or help with intelligence. Because it's great being able to match every sentence, understand what's going on, but if it's just holding its hands up going, I don't know what to do with this, it's absolutely useless. But I'm going to move away from machine learning as it's needed to start with AI, but without it you can still create something pretty awesome. So here we've got ALICE, which is Artificial Linguistic Internet Computer Entity, quite a bit of a mouthful, which is why it's ALICE. So this doesn't use artificial intelligence, however it's won prizes for being some great software to help parse stuff and give responses. And it's all done using AIML, which is a way to run your own chatbot in roughly 10 minutes. And here's one I made earlier. But because demos break all the time, I could do one if we've got time, but this is one that I did before. So you can see that essentially I've managed to start a conversation, ask the bot how it is, I'm the one in green, just so you know. Put in some pre-programmed responses. I've started a conversation telling it where I am. It's then asked me a question and I'm able to reply. And that's just using this tool. And I have forked it. Anyone's welcome to join in and contributing. The link's at the bottom. And this is how it works. So on the left, we've got the pattern that's hello. An SRAI is a reroute, so it essentially a go-to. So it will go to the answer, which is under Pycon UK hello. And it will pick one of those three below in a random order. So here's a conversation. In my other screenshot that I had part of my example, I'm at Pycon. Here we've got Pycon place star. So what the star actually means is it's a variable. So somewhere else I do have I am at star, which reroutes here. It takes a star in as a variable, so you could type in absolutely anything there and it would just accept it. And then you can see the response. I'm not sure if anyone at the back can see it, but the response is star, so it repeats what you've actually told it where you are. It sounds good, are you enjoying yourself? And then after that, what it does is it sets a topic. So essentially what you're discussing, and we're discussing place, so where you currently are. And I'm setting the name, current place, so then that's a memory. We've already got the start of a memory there. It knows where you currently are because you've told it. And then we go into the topic. So we've got Pycon UK yes, Pycon UK no. I've got loads of synonyms for yes and no stored elsewhere, which will just reroute here. So we've got I don't blame you, I wish you were there, I wasn't invited, and for no, that's a shame, I had high hopes for it. And then it unsets the topic because we're not then discussing the places anymore. So everything is set under here, and then we've got, say, conditionals. So the chatbot, say if we wanted to use that variable of current place somewhere else, we could use a conditional. So if that variable wasn't present, we could look into it with the condition and say if it's there, reply with this. If it's not, you could then dive into another conversation and ask where the person actually was, so then you could gather more information and add to the memory. And all of this would be maintained for that user's session. And just in case anyone is interested, this is how the patterns are actually stored. So it's essentially a tree structure, but I'm not going to go into too much detail about it. So say if we had 2 questions, how are you? So you can see where you've got how are you in 3 different sections. If you had something else with how at the beginning, it would go under how as a second part of the structure. So it's all stored in a way which is easily accessible. So what's missing to make this software into an amazing chatbot? I mean, I've discussed already how to access services is fairly important to appear intelligent, and that's missing here. However, that integration is actually possible. It's just not there yet in that particular library. It is very much a base model. And the access to many patterns. So an issue with PyAIML is that you actually have to write all of these patterns individually. So where I had hello, you need hello star to match hello, I'm Chloe, for example, or you need a star before hello if you wanted to say something before hello, or before and after as well, because a star is a catch-all. So you need to do all the 3 combinations, and that applies to everything. So to be able to match everything that someone could possibly say, you need an awful lot of those. But this can be automated, which reduces a lot of pain in the task. And then there's spell checking, because you can't guarantee anyone will ever type anything in right, just about ever. So I've been saying these things are possible, and with this base model, and I can show you the fact that some of these are possible. Trust me on the fact that the automating patterns is. I can't show you, but I wouldn't do this by hand, and we have a few 100,000. So I'll give you a bit of background about myself. I worked First Utility, and we started with the base model of PyAIML. And when we introduced it, I've not worked with Python before, I'd not worked with AI before. I think my only language before that was PHP and a bit of Java. So our product now, the one that we have, is vastly different to PyAIML. But adding in service capabilities was actually one of the first things that we did with it. So this is an example I've got. It's not the smartest, but I don't want to fill my presentation with a bunch of screenshots of stepping through conversations. But what this one essentially does is, I've said I want to change to paper billing. It's gone into my account, called all of our the service with that information in. It's checked that I am in fact currently paying by electronic billing. So then it's gone through, it's found the correct answer which correlates with that data. So there's answers in for each bit of the data, and this is the one for I've got electronic billing currently. And then it's offered to make the change. So if I'd at that point typed yes, which I'd rather not change my account, so I didn't, it would then go in, post to a service, and then sort that for me. So if in this case, a customer is completely served themselves, no need to call in, and it can be used for many other things. I think another great example is direct debit reassessments, which can be done through this. It'll do all of the calculations behind the scenes to work out what someone's direct debit should be, and then it will go in and change it when they confirm that they've read all the T&Cs, which they inevitably don't read. So 2 years down the line, we've added in formatting, which you can see here. This did used to be all one block, very unattractive. We've got the access to services, and we've got the in-depth transactional conversations, plenty of other things. But we started with that PyAIML as a base model. So here's another example that I've got, just to show the balance on my account. What is my balance? It gives me the balance, and then it leads into another conversation which you don't necessarily have to follow. So it'll ask me, would you like more information about credit? So for this answer in particular, in the background, it's actually dynamic. So depending on whether or not the customer is in credit or debt, it would then ask a different question and take you down a different route. So it would give you advice on debt if you were in debt, or advice in credit if you're in credit. So it's quite flexible as long as you use it well. So what actually is AI? I mean, I've just spoken about how it's about the language processing and the services. And in relation to chatbots, it really is about what we perceive intelligence as. I mean, this is just my opinion, but it's much about feigning real intelligence, because you don't need neural networks or anything complicated in the artificial intelligence world to create something which actually seems intelligent. I think AI is a whole in a massive area, but for just getting started, this is really all it needs to be.
We'll be taking some questions, and anyone who would like to ask a question, please put your hand up and then wait while I come to you with this microphone. Do we have any questions? Yes. I'm going to start here and then come back there, because you're a very long way away.
Hi, Chloe. I was just wondering, people are notorious for not saying exactly what they mean. Have you got examples in your work where you've actually been able to detect that that's happening and sort of give them a standard response or direct them somehow?
It's all about where we go through our data regularly, because we get roughly 6,000 to 7,000 people use our bot a day. So we go through that and we work out what people are saying, and because we take a personal approach and we look at it, we know where they actually want to be. And we can look at what they've asked in the past, and it does give some context to what they're going to be saying and what they actually mean. So we try and handle that as best we can.
My question was more about how you deliver that to the sort of user that's receiving the support. How is that positioned, in the sense that, do you make it clear that it's not a human, or do you try and feign that there's a human on the other end? And like, how did you come to the decision?
We haven't entirely come to a decision on this one, because we do have it in a small block of text underneath that it is an artificial intelligence bot. However, customers tend not to read it because it's small text and it's on the contact us page and they just want the phone number. So it is one of those where if people assume it's a human, we let them. If they know it's a robot, great, and they end up getting to where they need to be anyway, because if they ask for the phone number, the bot will give it to them, or we'll try and direct them through to live chat. So we just leave it to them to work it out.
Hiya. You mentioned that there are tools available that you can use to automatically generate some of the potential routes and responses that people go through if you've got a corpus of real humans doing roughly the same job. What are some of the tools and resources that people could use to do that?
Because this isn't a very well-known, because it is just a branch on GitHub, this part which I've shown you here, we wrote them all in-house. It was quite painful to begin with, to be honest. It took about 3 days to get that part written. But it's the sort of thing which we'd be looking to eventually bringing it to open source. Say I've got my fork, so I'd be looking to put it up on there to make lives easier for everyone, because nobody has to go through that pain.
Anyone else? Yes. Two.
What about the to connect to APIs and services? Is that also in-house and same process?
It's in-house. It's just an addition that we've put in. So we know how to get it in there. Well, I know how to get it in there, and it's something which you could work out how to get it in there if you had a look at it, and it's not too difficult. It's just not in this version yet, because we can't push ours up to open source because it's too internal. It's got too much of our information in it. It's one of those things that's very possible, very doable, but we just can't put it out there.
Hi, I think you mentioned this is handling several thousand conversations a day.
Yeah.
What kind of impact has that had on jobs?
It hasn't stopped us hiring, say, in the call centre or anything. We're still getting plenty of people to handle, because there's many customers where we can't serve. We can't simply do what they need on their account over a robot. It's things where we're getting a lot of phone calls about that we know the customer could deal with themselves. But it's not impacted things like jobs. If anything, it helped create an entirely new department to maintain the robot.
Do I have more questions? Hands high, because I have to stand in the middle of the room now. Yes, there. Can someone just pass this backwards?
How do you measure the effectiveness of the bot or the customer satisfaction?
Simple answer, we don't. We know we've got some convoluted way to work out whether or not they've called us afterwards, and we can also see what they talk to us about, and we've got records of what they talk to us on the phone about, so we can put those bits of data together and work out what we need to do to make them a bit happier through the bot. But it is, sometimes we do tell them to call us because we've recognised what they're talking about, but we can't deal with it, so we need them to call us anyway. So it's kind of a half do, half don't one.
Anyone else? Yes.
What do you do in case of the user gives the bot sensitive data, such as financial details? In case, how does the bot handle that?
We hash it all out. So in our logs, it just doesn't get registered, say, because we do ask for bank details in some cases. We've got things which knows that we're accepting bank details, and then it hashes it out for us, so it's stored nowhere.
And we can do one more. There we go.
Cool. Hi. Who owns the tone, the messaging within it's a large organisation and you've got comms departments and that kind of thing. Is it a situation where the product team that builds the bot owns how the bot speaks, or is it that you have to have a separate system where someone else is controlling the messaging and that's kind of fed in, and you have to, every time someone wants to change what the bot can do, is that manageable outside of the system, or is it essentially a product change?
So we own it all. This is where we've been trying to move away from that. It's just getting there. So we get requests from other parts of the company. We go and update the bits which they've requested to be updated. We are looking to move that to another platform so we don't have to deal with that side of things. But for now, it's all done by us in-house.
All right. Thank you very much, Chloe. Can everyone join me in thanking Chloe?